Good morning, everybody that's joining. Alrighty. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This morning is going to be a crocheted loop stitch. Every morning around 9:45, I go live on TikTok and I do a different tutorial, and then I upload my unedited lives right to YouTube from the mornings, so you can go back and rewatch the live tutorials if you'd like. I do a different tutorial each week, and I pick about an hour and a half, and each morning I go through that project. So by the end of the week we have a finished project that we have crocheted together. This week is kind of miscellaneous stitch week, so every day I've picked a different stitch, and we've just done a different stitch each day. And these are all available on my YouTube site at this point. Yesterday was flowers in a row. Yesterday was flowers in a row, and I showed you how to do just the basic pattern, and then I showed you how you can change the colors if you wanted to do color changes. I also showed you how if you want to do like a single stem, you could do a single stem instead of a loopy stem. So that was yesterday's. What else did we do? We did crocheted elephants. I'm not always the most organized. I'm not sure where my elephants went, but it was an elephant border. So the border actually had the elephants going around them. Good morning, Samantha. Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, everybody that's joining me. Monday we did the cat stitch. And then next week's tutorial, we are actually going to make this cat stitch into a shrug. And the shrug you can kind of see there on my mannequin in the back. I have it just wrapped around her like a scarf. So that's going to be next week's tutorial. I'm going to make a mess of everything here today, I can tell. I always think I'm ahead of the game, and then I'm not. Today's stitch. Oh, well, that is what it is. Today's stitch is going to be a loop stitch. And I like a loop stitch. It adds like some fringy texture to whatever you're doing. There are two different ways to do it, and I'm going to go through both of them. One of the things that I like to use my loop stitch on is my puppets, because I make a lamb chops puppet I've made in the past that I use that loop stitch on. You can do them on the fronts of blankets. I've done them as texture pieces where, like, I made my daughter a blanket that had an angel on it, and the body of the angel was baubles. It was all one solid color, but the body of the angel was bottomed. Good morning, Arlene. The body of the angel was baubles, and then the big wings were all this loopy stitch. And funny story, not so funny. Loop stitches can be pulled from the front to the back. They say stay secured and they don't come out, but they can be pulled from the front to the back. Which is okay, because more times than not, you're gonna leave them where they sit, and they wash well and they dry well and they kind of stay where they sit, and they don't come apart. However, they do when you pick at them. So we had a friend come over one time when she was younger and sit there and pick every single loop stitch. Now this was a rather large twin blanket, so it draped over the sides of all four sides of the twin bed. So you can imagine how big the wings were. And this particular friend sat there bored while they were playing and picked every single loop stitch to the wrong side of the blanket. Yeah, it was hundreds of loops that I then had to sit there. Luckily, I had a crochet hook, so I could just like pick them back through. But yeah, wasn't real happy with that. But as far as puppets and things like that go, the loops, yeah, oh no, I was furious. I was so angry, only because I then had to sit there and pick all those loops back out to the right side of the blanket. But as far as like the puppets go, they're adorable and they're going to stay. Those loops are going to stay where you put them, and you can give them a little bit of yank if you want. If they look like they're getting short, you just and the puppets that I've done with them have actually stayed together in the washer and dryer as well. No, this was not an adult. This was a little kid, so I couldn't exactly lose it. I had to kind of stay calm and say, oh, I'll fix it. I wasn't real happy about that. But it is what it is. And right now that gigantic pink blanket sits rolled up stuffed in her closet somewhere. Give me a minute here. For some reason my voice isn't working today. Okay. Connecting my Granny Squares tote bag. Oh, cool. Good morning, Tammy. Okay, so I picked gray today. I figured gray would be an easy to color to see since I wore red. Yeah, it's laundry day, so this is what I had left. Red. Just like everything, I am going to start with a chain and a row of single crochets. Still have the other side of the granny squares yet to make. I've found that putting those bags together, it's actually easier to make all of the squares all at once and then pin them together, and then you have less seams to sew because you can just keep going around the bag to stitch them. But sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'll do like half of them and just kind of put them together. Or if you're crocheting, if you're joining as you go, then that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to work with a swatch of 15. So I'm going to do 2 rows of single crochet for 15, just so that I have a decent base that I can show you guys the stitches on. How is everybody this morning? You will be lining it or you will not be lining it? Good, that's good to hear. Need caffeine. Doing okay, you guys. Hey, you know what? If I'm above the ground, I'm doing good. That has become my attitude lately. If I'm above ground, I'm doing good. Oh no. I do apologize for my voice this morning. I'm going to apologize for the hacking, puffing. Ain't that the truth? Yep. Good morning, Pamela. Apologize for the hacking, panting dog right now because yesterday, I know somebody had commented that he was so good. Well, he was good because when I walked out of the bedroom, I shut the door most of the way so that he really wouldn't hear me. And he just fell asleep. And Charlie, as you can hear, that did not work this morning. So after I get my 2 rows done, I might have to take a minute. To give him a treat. So I have 2 rows of just plain single crochet. And from that, I'm going to build my loop stitches off of it. I know, Sir Charles needs his treat. Good morning, Melanie. Yes, you hear the beast. Beastie. Go get your bone. Go get your bone. Go get your bone. Things I've trained him. Sort of because I'm lazy. Go get your bone. If you want a treat, you go get your bone. Here he comes. He'll throw it at my feet. And then I'll jump into this. Good morning, Melanie. If I did not say that already. I don't think I saw you this morning, but I was a little bit busy this morning. Bone. I was a little bit busy this morning. I didn't really get a chance to jump on. I usually like to jump on and at least send some likes and show some support, but I did not get a chance to do that this morning. Yeah, some mornings better than others. All right. Sir Charles, here's your treats. Hopefully you'll stop and just kind of pass out after you eat it. That would be fantastic. Easy. Munch. Part of my routine. Most of you guys have kind of that as part of my routine. Alrighty. And he's gone. I have a lot of those. I have a whole bin of those. And it's not a small bin either. Sorry, I always forget not to slurp because you guys can hear that. Anyway, loop stitches. Loop stitches can be done in 2 ways. And I actually just learned the second way to do them. The first way that I learned to do them was your loops are always on the back side. So the way that I've learned to do them, your loops are always on the back side. And I'm going to do a couple and then I'll show you. And then I just recently learned how to do them with the loops on the front side, which is going to, that's how you know it's good. Slurp away. So you can see my loops are on, I'm crocheting this way. So I'm crocheting this way, and my loops are on the back side. and then you would turn and you would do a row of single crochet, and then you'd turn again and do your loops on the back side again. Which does actually make, even though you're only doing every other row, it does actually make your loops thick and shaggy enough. They're actually like really plush. They're fun to play with. So to do them, it's a little bit different. And I should probably grab my chair and turn my camera around, because it's probably going to be a little bit easier for me to show you if I do that. So let me do that, because this one's a little bit, I'm not going to say tricky, but the way you pull the loops, I think it'll be easier if you actually look at it from my viewpoint from the camera. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to grab my chair real quick, and my kitchen chair real quick, and put it behind my camera so that I can sit there and do that for you guys. I walked into my kitchen one day and I thought, what's wrong here? Well, I was missing a chair. My daughter had taken it to sit and do her hair in her broom. And I was like, oh my God, where'd my kitchen chair go? Okay, so let me turn this around. That's where I usually sit. And put my camera back. I know everything's going to look backwards. I can flip this around. It's like the coolest thing. Melanie, if you're still here and you want to write a sign, you can just like write it with Sharpie. And depending on which way you flip it, because the Sharpie goes through the paper, one side's the right side and one side's the wrong side. And I have this up here because my husband is crazy about me trying to support and promote myself. So, thus my sign sits there. Yeah. Okay. So, let's see how I can maneuver myself here so I'm not bouncing everybody around, and I can do my stitch. Okay. So, your loop stitch. The first way I'm showing you is the hard way. And, well, I guess it depends on which way, but you can see the loops there. So when you do this loop stitch, you're going to pull up as far as you want it to be. So if you want your loops longer, you pull your yarn up longer. If you want your loops to be shorter, you pull your loops shorter. So this is going to be the length of your loop around your finger. I'm going to pull them up a little bit longer to show you. What I'm going to do now is sort of like a single crochet, but we're going to grab the yarn just a little bit differently. So I'm going to insert my hook into my stitch, and I'm going to go around. I'll show you again. Again, this is the hard way. You can wait for the easy way. I'm going to put all of my yarn behind my hook. I'm going to go around my yarn with my hook, and I'm going to take both of those loops that are there, and that's how I'm going to pull it through for the first part of my single crochet. So we're going to count these two loops as one loop. This loop is the second loop. We're going to drop the loop from our finger, and we're going to pick it back up, and we're going to pull it through just like we would pull through a single crochet. And that gives us the loop on the back. And you can play with the height of your loops. This is the way I learned how to do a loop stitch. There is an easier way, and after I do this round and show you quite a few times, I think I have 10 or 15 stitches over here. After I show you a few times, I will show you the easier way that I learned just recently. So again, I'm going to insert my hook. I am going to go around all of my yarn and then I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to drop my loop, just totally drop it. I'm going to pick up my working thread. I'm counting that right there is one loop, even though it's two because you pulled two from the loop through. I'm going to count that as one, and I'm just going to pull through both of them. No, once you've made the loop, it's pretty much the size that you've made it. It's pretty much going to stay the size that you made it. There we go. You can, however, and I don't even know how he did this, find from the back the thread. This is really not right. Maybe this will work better. Give me 1 second, because I think with everything in the background, I'm having a hard time focusing. This is my stitch and thread graveyard down there under my chair. Hopefully that stays focused a little bit better. But because you pulled those loops through, you could find, and it looks like it's this one, and if you pulled it, oh, maybe it's this one. It's one of these. You can pull the loop to the other side. I don't know which one it is, but you can pull the loop to the other side, which is what that kid did. He just sat there and pulled them all to the other side. So instead of being that side, they were that side. So this way of doing it, you have to kind of play with it, because you see my loops are all just a little bit different. So you kind of have to play with how far you hold your yarn up before you wrap your hook around it. So again, I'm going to go in front of everything, behind everything, and pull through those loops. Pull those loops through the stitch. I'm going to drop the stitch, the loop from my hand. I'm going to count this as one loop, and this is the second loop for my single crochet, and I'm just going to pull through both of them. So if you wanted to make shorter loops, you would have to wrap really tight around your finger. So you can still do it. And that would make a shorter loop. So depending on how tight you pulled it around your finger would give you a shorter loop or a longer loop. So I'm going to do the rest of the way across this. So again, I'm going to insert my hook. I'm going to go in front of all of my pieces, all of my strings, wrap it behind all of my strings. I'm going to pull up my stitch. I'm going to drop my loop, and I'm going to finish my single crochet. Yes, you do have to try to be consistent with your loops. So again, I'm going to put it in. I'm going to wrap it, my hook behind everything, and then pull it through. Drop my loop off, pick up my working thread, and then pull through everything on the stitch there. So again, put it through. You're going to wrap it in front of all those strings, in front of everything, and then you're going to pull down everything that you've just wrapped around and picked up. Drop the loop off your finger. And then finish your single crochet. Into my loop from the front all the way around. Pick everything up. Once you get the hang of it, it's a much crocheting like knitting last night. That's typically Tunisian crochet. Tunisian crochet, and I don't know. I've tried it. I wasn't all that fond of it because it curls like knitting. But I actually knit like I crochet. So I actually hold my yarn like this and my knitting needle like down here. And I actually use this knitting needle to pull up my yarn and pull it through when I knit. I do believe it's continental. Like they don't use their left hand at all. Not even to hold their yarn, their working yarn. Hey there, Ty. Thanks for joining us. Again, I'm going to take my hook in front of everything, wrap it behind everything, pull through those loops up. I'm going to drop the loop off of my finger, pick up my working yarn again, yarn over, and pull through. Oh, Lacey, thank you very much. I love raccoons. My husband hates them, and I can understand why. They eat my garbage every night. So again, I inserted my hook into my stitch. I'm going to go in front of everything, behind everything, and those two loops that are on there, I'm going to pull through like my single crochet, drop the loop off my finger. I've dropped the loop off my finger, and then I'm going to yarn over again and pull through just like a single crochet. She just had hold of her left side of the blanket. Huh. That is really odd. Okay, so I'm just going to finish off this row doing the loop stitches, and then I'll turn it around and show you. So again, I'm going to insert my hook into my stitch. I'm going to go in front of everything, behind everything, those two loops, and I'm going to pull them through my stitch. Doesn't matter if they're crossed or not. You can leave them crossed. That's going to count as one loop. That's going to count as two loops. I'm going to drop the loop from my finger, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. I'm going to go through my stitch. I'm going to go in front of everything, wrap behind everything, pull it through, taught me like this. Yeah, this is kind of how I learned to crochet. Pull it through. I'm going to drop the loop off my finger. I'm going to pick up my working yarn, and then I'm just going to pull through again. In the last stitch here, I'm going to put through the last stitch And same thing, I'm going to go in front of all of my yarn to the back, and I'm going to pull it through. Now when you notice when I pull it through, notice which part is moving. So when I pull it through, you have to hold your tension just a little bit. You can see my tension from my working yarn moving through there. So I'm holding my loop up, and even though I have 2 loops from that loop on my finger, I'm just pulling through so the working yarn loose tension is looser and pulling through. So now I've done an entire row of loop stitches. Here's the magic. Oh, come on. I don't know why this won't focus. There we go. So I've done an entire row of loop stitches. And that is how you would work them. And you see how they're inconsistent, which I kind of did on purpose because it depends on how you hold your hand, or how far up you pull your loop. The further you pull your loop up to do the stitch, the longer your loop is going to be. The tighter you pull your loop around your finger, the shorter the loop is going to be. So you just kind of have to play with how you want your loops to be. I have to adjust myself here. So you just kind of have to play with how big you want your loops to be. So now I'm going to do another row of just single crochet. That way I can show you, not my gray hairs. That way I can show you how you can do the loop stitch an easier way from the front side without these loops being in the way to confuse you. So let me, it seems like this is an easy thing to do, and all you would do is just crochet through them like you would crochet through your normal crochet. And if you wanted to consistently do them on the back, you would just do every other row of loop stitches. I only have 15 stitches here, I think. Sorry. It's not as easy as you think to try to crochet while you're looking at it on a camera. It's really an odd thing, actually. Okay, so I did my row of single crochets, and I'm going to flip it. And then instead of doing my loop stitches so that they end up on the back, like if you were just doing the back loop stitches, you would then turn it and you would do another row of loop stitches, turn it and do another row of single crochet, and it would give you, once you've done a few rows, it would give you a more plush look. Come on, there you go. You can take your loops when you're done with them and put your finger in them and give them a little tug just to tighten them up. You can see how it tightens that knot up a little bit. So this is the knot you're looking at. If I put it in here, it just kind of tightens it up a little bit. You don't have to, but I do. And that's not going to come out. And even if it does come out, it's not going to pull your whole piece apart. It's just going to flip to a different, it's just going to be underneath a different part of your stitch. So you can go through and pull all these loops a little bit tight if you want. And I usually do, especially if I'm making like puppets or something. So now I'm going to teach you the new way that I learned how to do this, because this way is kind of a pain. So when I'm working my puppets in the round, I actually have to join my work at one point and start working wherever I want my my loops to be for my sheep or my lamb. I have to flip and I have to work from the back side. So I would have to then join my work and turn and crochet in the opposite direction for the number of rows that I wanted my loops to be. If I do it this way that I'm going to show you now, I don't have to. So that's going to be like fantastic for me because it just means that I can crochet things a little bit faster. And this might be a better way as well to adjust your tension and adjust the size of your loop. So this way, and let me do one single crochet first. So this way of doing the loop stitches, you're going to pull your loop down as far as you want it, and you're going to hold your loop. But again, you're going to go in front of this stitch here, and I grab it with my hook just to move it to the side, because you want your whole loop to the side of the stitch you're going to work in. So if this is the stitch that I'm working in, I want my whole loop to be on this side. And I'm going to hold my loop there, and I'm going to insert my hook into my stitch, and then I'm just going to single crochet. And then I'm going to pull my loop a little bit tight, which you can go back and pull. You can go back and pull your loop a little bit tight once you've done the whole row. So that's a little bit easier way of doing a loop stitch, which I kind of like, because then I can just keep doing it from the front side, and I can just keep going around in my circles to do my puppet with my loop stitches. I've done loop stitches for the puppets with the lion's mane. I've done loop stitches for my lamb chops puppets. I've done, I don't know what else. Good morning. Anything that has like, loop stitches I do for my unicorn puppets for around my, for around the horns. So again, I'll show you. So this one, you're going to pull your loop down, whoops, as far as you want it. Pull your loop up. This is the stitch I'm going to work into. So I want to make sure all of my strings are to this side of that stitch that I'm going to work on. And then I'm going to go around that loop into the next stitch. I'm going to grab my working yarn. I'm still holding my loop, and I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to finish my single crochet. And I have my second loop there, and I'm just going to pull a little bit tighter. That one I did a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go across showing you how to do this, and then I'll flip my camera back again. Again, you would take your loop, you want your whole loop here to be on this side of the stitch you're going to work, because you want to work over top of all this. And then you're going to insert your hook. So my working thread is sort of between there. And then I'm just going to yarn over like I would for my single crochet, and yarn over again. And it does make it look a little bit looser until you grab it and give it a yank. And you see when you grab it and give it a yank, it tightens that up. Am I going to use this for my puppets? Probably, because it's easier. Do I think that this way is more secure? I think so, but I'm not sure. I don't know if it's like, if I'm doing the same thing, well, I know I'm not doing the same thing because I know I'm not pulling two strands through. So again, I'm going to make my loop. I'm going to make sure the whole loop is beside the stitch that I'm going to work into. Insert my hook. You see my working string is in between. And then I'm going to grab and then finish my single crochet. And with that stitch being a little bit longer, I'm just going to grab and pull this, and it's going to tighten up that stitch. But again, that's something you can go back and do. So it's an easier way to do it. Again, I'm going to bring my loop down as far as I want it. I'm going to keep that thread to, that's the stitch I'm going to work into, so I'm going to keep that thread over here so that my hook is actually going over top of it and into that next stitch. And then I'm going to grab that and pull it through, finish my single crochet, and there's my loop. Again, you can go back and tighten your loops after you've done the whole row. And I'm going to finish out this row here. I'm going to pull my loop down. I'm going to make sure that it's to the inside. Pull it through both, or pull it through my stitch, and then pull it through both to finish my single crochet. And I'm going to tighten it up. I think that's the only downside to doing it this way. I've only just attempted to do it this way. I've never actually done a whole project this way. So I'm not sure if I like the fact that I have to tighten up each stitch, or if I like just wrapping them around from the back. I don't know. I would have to make a piece and figure it out, or maybe use a smaller hook to adjust my tension. So again, I'm going to pull my loop down. This is the stitch I'm going to work into next. So I want to make sure my working yarn is next to my hook, not on the other side of my stitch. And then I'm just going to insert it. My working yarn's through there. I'm going to pull through the stitch. I'm going to pull through both. And I'm sure once I did it for a while, I would get it to the point where I could get that stitch tight without having to pull my loops tight. It does give me a little bit more of a consistent without having to pay attention. Hey Tyler. Good morning, good evening. So again, I'm going to pull my loop down. I'm going to make sure that my working thread is by my hook side. This is the stitch I'm going to work into. I'm going to put my hook over top of that stitch, or over top of that working yarn, so it's sort of sandwiched in between. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through. And then I'm going to tighten this stitch. I always shake that much. I've always shaken that much since I've been a kid. This is one of the reasons why I like to crochet, because the repetitive movement and the quick movements, and it's one of the reasons why I can crochet so fast, calms that, and I don't shake that much. So again, I have my loop here that I have pulled down, and I'm going to hold the working yarn closest to my hook. I'm going to go into my working stitch. I'm going to yarn over, pull through my stitch, yarn over and pull through both, and then I'm going to tighten up that stitch. So I can definitely see how having to stop and tighten up, or go back and tighten up my stitches, which I would do anyway, I would still, it's 12 p.m. there. Yeah, that's late. That's like really, really late for me. This is the easier way to make the loops a more consistent size. Yes. Scrolling back through my comments here. Yes, this is the easier way. And Lacey, if I didn't thank you, thank you. but this is the easier way to make them a more consistent size. As you can see, they are much more consistent, and I'm not really paying attention. Again, I'm going to pull my loop down. I'm going to make sure my working yarn is behind my hook, on the hook side of the next stitch that I'm going to want to work. Whoops. I'm going to make sure I hold my loop, and I'm going to go into that next stitch. It's getting towards the end here, with my working yarn in between, and I'm going to pull it up through my fabric, finish off my stitch, take it and tighten that stitch, and yeah, you can see it's much more of a consistent loop. I can get much more of a consistent loop, although I can get a consistent loop if I'm paying attention. I can get a consistent loop with working it on the back side, but I do have to pay much more attention, whereas this way I can actually see what I'm doing when I pull my loop down, where to hold it, and pull my string back up. Again, I'm making sure it's on that side. And see, this is what I don't like, because if I've held my hook up too high, my stitch is really loose. So let's see if I can hold it down a little bit lower. I would have to practice this. So there's my loop, and into my next stitch. That's where my loop comes out. And I got that one much tighter. Oh, come on. But I still feel like I need to pull it a little bit tight. So again, I'm almost at the end of the row. So I'm going to pull down for my loop, pull up for my loop. This is my stitch I'm going to work into, so I'm going to make sure all my strands are on this side, by my hook side. I'm going to insert it into my stitch. I'm going to yarn over, pull it through my stitch. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through both loops. That one's a little bit better. It just takes some practice. As you can see, even I need to practice them to get them decent. So, last stitch, last loop. Whoops, I'm going to pull this tight. I'm going to pull it up and close to my hook. I'm going to go into my last stitch, so I'm going to go over top of that string, and you can see where it's coming through the center there, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through both. And then that would be how you would do the loop stitches from the front side. So a little bit more consistent because you can see what you're doing. Probably just as secure because you're making a knot around it. But because it is a loop, you would be able to pull it back and forth. It wouldn't, you're doing it, oh cool, awesome. It's not going to pull out. It would just simply pull one way or the other and loosen up a part of it, if that makes sense. So it would not unravel. It would just kind of, like I said, the kid pulled them all to the opposite side. But this would be a good technique if you wanted to make, say, a scarf that was shaggy on both sides. You could do one side was your loop stitch that you worked on your back, and then instead of doing just a row of plain single crochets, you could turn around and you could do your loop stitches on the front. Then you could turn around and, you know, you could just alternate to get a shaggy scarf. Let me move my camera. Ah, there I am. Red makes me look red everything. But I like it. Don't mind the red. Fix my camera there again. So what do you guys think about that loop stitch? When I'm working it around, it's a little bit different because like when I'm doing my puppets, because I'm constantly doing rows of loop stitches, so it ends up being much more fluffier than this. Because I'm working in the round, I'm always doing either a right side or a wrong side stitch when I'm going around in that circle. So if I choose to do my loops on the right side, I can do every row like that. And if I choose to join and start working from the wrong side, like work around the inside of my puppet so that my loops are on the outside of my puppet, I'm still consistently working a wrong side so I can do every row being my loops. But if you wanted to get this look with every row being your loops, you would have to do it with it on the front side. But I think that even with my loops, working them the way that I did on the front side, I would probably be more inclined to do a row of single crochet in between them. I have actually cut my loops to make it fuzzy on my, where did he go? I will show you, but you would have to brush them out because once you had cut them, you then have loose ends, right? This is a loop that's going to get caught. So if you pull it back or forth, or you from one side to the other, or if one side loosens up, you've got a loop that's going to hold the stitch somewhere. Whereas if you cut the ends, you then have just a bunch of loose pieces that I honestly would then glue or secure some way on the back, because then you have a bunch of loose ends that you could actually just pull through and that stitch would come out, if that makes sense. But I have done, I'm trying to find him. He's probably sitting zen on top of my refrigerator. Oh no, here he is. This was a ridiculous request from my husband. Really ridiculous. It's a unicorn sloth. And he needs combed. But this, you can see, hair, my gray hairs just keep falling out. You can see that this is where I did my loop stitches. And I cut them all. But then I brushed them out with like a comb. Actually, I used my fingernails, I think, the majority of the time, and then used a comb once I got them to fray. And once you've like frizzed them like that, they're not going to pull back through the loops. So if you wanted to make like a furry dog, and yeah, he is a puppet. My puppet. My unicorn sloth. My husband was like, you have to make that. I'm like, okay. So I usually sit him on top of my refrigerator, cross-legged, with his arms like zen. So he sits there and watches over everybody. But that would be something that you could do with loop stitches. If you wanted to make something furry, these stitches aren't coming out because they're so fluffed up. You can see all the fluff flying. the stitches are so fluffed up that they're not going to pull back into the body. They're just going to stay that way, because that kind of like creates, it kind of creates like a cone shape, if that makes sense. Thanks. So if you've got your loop stitch, right, you're going to be able to slide it back and forth. This does not look good. But if you fray the ends, it's going to end up sticking. The ends are going to be like flared and too big to get through that stitch. So if you wanted to make something fuzzy like this to cut the loops, you absolutely could, because the fraying it or the fuzzing it or the brushing it would keep the stitches from being pulled back through. But to just cut the loops to make like hair, I don't think that I'd do that, because then you have two loose ends that can very easily just be pulled out, and once you pull out that one stitch, you've kind of lost everything in the before and after, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my loop stitch. And that is, depending on which side you want it on. That's how I make some of my puppets, like my lions. That's how I make my manes. And you can do the same thing with the lion mane. You could cut it and brush it, or you could just leave them. I usually just leave them loopy. I like the brushing. I'm not a huge fan of the brushing, just simply because I like things to look neat. And I feel like when I brush it, unless that's the particular look I'm going for, I feel like when I brush it, it just doesn't have that neat, crisp look to it. So I usually leave my loop stitches, loops instead of brushing them and cutting them. And Tyler, I'm glad you managed to do it if you're still here. Everybody that's still here, what did I do with my yarn? It is underneath the sloth corn. And that was quicker than I thought it was going to be. So maybe one of these days I'll have to do a tutorial and do the puppet with it, so I can show you guys how I do the puppet with it. But next week's tutorial, tomorrow I'm going to pick a different stitch. I did say I'd try broomstick lace, so what is today? Today's Thursday? So I guess I have to, make it a point. Thank you very much, Pam. I appreciate it. To teach myself how to do that, so that I can teach you guys how to do that, because I have no freaking clue how to do that. My mother used to do it. But since tomorrow's Friday, and I did mention broomstick lace, yes, broomstick lace. So tomorrow we'll try broomstick lace. I will be trying it right along with you, so we'll see how well that works out. It's pretty, and apparently there were lots of different ways to make it, so I'll see what I can accomplish tomorrow. I am going to call it today. I've done it. To me, it was easy and beautiful. Yeah, my mother made it look really easy. So I'm going to learn it along with you guys. It's kind of the point of my live tutorials. Oh, my mother would never. I can guarantee you. My mother is like mortified when she like hits the wrong button and like sends me and like does a no. Yeah, have the right stick. No, you don't need a loom. Yes, you need to have the right stick. My mother's mortified if she like goes to send me a message on Messenger and like hits the video chat button and I like pop up going, hey, and she's like, oh my God, I didn't mean to call you like that. She's funny. She would never do that. Okay, so broomstick lace, I can tell you that as long as you have something that is, I'm trying to think of something that everybody might have around the house. Anybody have any ideas? It's got to be a little bit smooth so the stitches can come off of it. And I'm looking around trying to see what I might have that might work. A straw, I could probably use. I could probably use a straw. Do the moss stitch maybe. Well, I did promise. I bought mine and had a point on it. Yeah, I have. Oh, that explains a lot. I have one ginormous knitting needle that came from my mother's, and I'm like, where's the second one? That's probably why it was only one, because she probably bought it for broomstick lace. Boy, like the glue's all discolored on it. The whole thing's discolored, actually. But this is what I have, and I'm trying to think though of. Is this what you have, Gail? Look how discolored it is. It's been sitting in a drawer for so long. It's just kind of like deteriorating. You can see all the glue on it. Yes. That totally explains why she only had one of these. Because I've been thinking to myself, why would she have one knitting needle? But that must have been what this was for. It must have been something that you bought to do broomstick lace with. That totally explains it. But I'm trying to think of what we could use that everybody might have around their house other than, this may sound ridiculous, other than a broomstick. But broomstick lace is, it's loopy. So I do know like basically what the gist of it. Chopsticks, see, that might be a little bit too small. I know you guys are all going to think I'm crazy when I make the suggestion, but first answer the first question. Broomstick lace is like loopy. So you just like you made the loop stitch, just like we made the loop stitch, but we made it a loop that was secured. This is you're making loops and loops and loops, and you're securing the top of the loops into different stitches. A turkey baster would probably work really well. Oh my God, Janie, that was brilliant. A turkey baster. And that's like $1 find at the dollar store too. That would be perfect. Because my suggestion was going to be a broomstick, which is actually, what's a turkey baster? A turkey baster is, I don't even think I have one anymore. I think I broke it. It kind of looks like this. It's like a big syringe. So it's kind of about this size, and it has a bulb on the top of it. So when you cook, sure you do. So when you cook and you have like gravy in your pan, you squeeze the top bulb of the turkey baster, and then you let it go, and it sucks up all the fluid that was in your pan, and then you can squeeze it back on your turkey to baste it or to cover in the liquid again. So yeah, I'm sure they're around in Australia too, turkey basters. Yeah, you know what? A turkey baster would probably work for now because I'll just do like a little swatch of it as much as I can to try it. And then if you like it, then you know, this would be an investment. But to be honest with you, it's called broomstick lace because women used to use their broomsticks to make the lace. Like the wooden, just a wooden broomstick. Laugh at my broom here. So if you have a broomstick, yes, that is my broomstick. really is attached to a broom. So that's why it was called broomstick. Yes, only one. Yes, it would work with big knitting needles. Knitting with chopsticks. A wrapping paper tube would work. It would just make it your loops bigger. But this is why they actually call it broomstick lace, because people used their brooms, their broomsticks, to make the lace with. And this broomstick, look how pretty that is. And I'm only showing you that because I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to be done with it for today. I was using my broom as my snow brush for my car. So by the spring it rusted and fell apart. Because of course now most of them are metal. And I told my husband that I needed a new broom because, I'm sure some of you guys can see where this is going. I needed a new broom because I broke the brush head off of my old broom because I used it as a snow brush for my car and left it sit outside, and it rusted away. So he came home with this, and I looked at the price tag, which is not on it. Is it on it? No, it's not on it. But he spent much more than I would have spent on a broom. And I said to him, why? Why? What possessed you to buy this instead of just like running to the dollar store and just buying the cheapest broom you can find? He said, well, with the straightest face, if you're going to ride it, you might as well ride a pretty one. And I thought, no words. So I have a pretty broom to ride. On that note, I hope everybody enjoyed that tutorial. I hope it was easy for you guys to understand. I know, right? I know. That was pretty funny. We have our moments. We like to be goofy. You need to. You have to have fun. All right. On that note, I hope everybody was able to understand what I did today. I think you were able to see it a lot better that way. Maybe I'll start doing things both ways, because I do like to be able to chat with you guys and see you guys, as well as showing you effectively how things are done. So, thoughts for the next day. Tomorrow we will definitely try broomstick lace, and since I usually go over and chatter for a really long time, I think today I'm going to call it that hour and a few minutes, and see you guys later. If you guys want to hang around and chat, I should be on later. And thank you for everybody that's joining. Thank you for all of the likes. I really appreciate that. Thank you for all the gifts. It was great today, thanks. Oh, you're more than welcome. And yeah, I'm going to go put my broomstick back without telling you more broomstick trivia, because there's quite a bit of it. I don't know why I know that, but I do. And I will see you guys later on tonight. Thank you.